I'm Ava. Sitting across from my brother Ethan in my office, I watched as a series of emotions flashed across his face: confusion, recognition, and finally, a dawning horror. Ava, what are you doing here? Where's the silent partner? He stammered. I took a deep breath and replied, Hi Ethan. I'm the silent partner. He stared at me in disbelief. That's not funny. I slid a folder across the table. These are the corporate documents from 2016 showing the LLC network that owns 51% of Translogistics. The trail leads to me. Our family has always been into business. My father, a strict and traditional man, built his own small manufacturing company. He was always more focused on Ethan, seeing him as the future of the family business. My mother, on the other hand, was more nurturing but also tended to side with my father's views. It all started when I was 21 and Ethan was 28. We were at a family gathering to celebrate my father's new business deal. Ethan had just launched his logistics company, Translogistics, and he was eager to show off his business model. He spent an hour explaining it to everyone at the table, while I quietly listened, sipping my drink. My father, out of politeness, asked me, What do you think, Ava? I carefully said, The pricing seems a bit tight. Maybe you should build up some cash reserves before expanding the fleet, in case fuel prices go up. Ethan laughed and cut me off. Stick to your studies, Ava. Business strategy is more complex than what you learn in school. Everyone at the table chuckled, and I went back to my drink, feeling a bit embarrassed but also determined to prove myself. Over the next few years, Ethan's company grew, but he always belittled my small financial consulting firm. He'd say things like, Still doing that little consulting thing? When are you going to think big like me? What he didn't know was that I had made my first $10 million by the age of 25 through a series of smart tech investments. By the time I was 30, I had built my portfolio to $340 million through careful management and strategic angel investing. I lived a modest life and kept my real financial situation a secret. My consulting firm was more of a front, a way to keep myself busy and involved in the business world. 8 years ago, Translogistics hit a crisis. Ethan had expanded too aggressively, overextending his credit lines and operating capital. He needed $180 million to avoid collapse. His bank started looking for private investors. Through a complex network of LLCs and investment vehicles set up by my lawyers, I became that investor. The terms were very generous. I got a 12% annual return, no board seat, complete anonymity, and a strategic advisory role that Ethan never knew came from me, channeled through his financial advisor, Mr. Thompson. For 8 long years, I watched Ethan build his company on my capital while he continued to dismiss my business acumen at every family gathering. He'd talk about his strategic vision and how he was building an empire, completely unaware that I was the one providing the financial foundation. Recently, there was another family meeting at Ethan's large mansion in the suburbs. All 20 family members were there for what Ethan called an important announcement. The living room was beautifully decorated, with catered food on the tables and wine flowing freely. Ethan stood at the front, looking like a CEO addressing shareholders. I'm here to share some amazing news. Translogistics has attracted acquisition interest from 3 major firms. We're looking at valuations between $850 million and $1 billion. The room erupted in applause. My father beamed with pride, and my mother was in tears. Ethan continued, This is the result of 8 years of strategic planning, aggressive growth, and calculated risks. When I started this company 13 years ago with just a few trucks and a dream, people doubted me. But I knew what I was doing. I took a sip of my wine and said nothing, doing some quick calculations in my head. I knew the actual capital structure of the company, and I could tell that Ethan was overstating his position. His equity was probably worth only $200 million to $280 million before taxes, considering the debt load and my 51% silent partner position. Ethan noticed my silence and turned to me with that patronizing smile. "No congratulations for your big brother, Ava?" I replied evenly, "Congratulations." He then said, "You should take notes, Ava. This is what real business building looks like, not those small consulting contracts you do." I quietly said, "I'm familiar with capital markets." He grinned. "Right, your little consulting firm. How's that going? Still in that small office?" I answered, "It's actually in a downtown building, and it's doing fine." He addressed the room. "See, that's the difference between small business thinking and real entrepreneurial vision. Ava does okay, but she doesn't understand the big picture like I do." I interrupted him, "Ethan, maybe we should talk about your capital structure. Debt-to-equity ratio, investor positions, and the actual equity stakes." The room went silent, and Ethan looked annoyed. "What? I'm not going to bore everyone with technical details at a celebration." I calmly continued, "The numbers you're citing don't account for your debt load or the silent partner position. If you're claiming $600 million to $750 million in personal equity at those valuations, you're either overstating your ownership or not accounting for your obligations." Ethan's face turned red. "Stick to your little side projects, Ava. Real business is beyond you. This is sophisticated corporate finance, not your small-time consulting." My father intervened, "Ethan is right, honey. This is a bit too specialized. Let's just celebrate your brother's success." I smiled politely and went back to my wine. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Thompson, saying he needed to speak with me urgently because Ethan was making statements about the valuation that showed he didn't understand the capital structure. I excused myself to the bathroom and called him back. He told me that at the current valuations, my 51% stake would be worth $433 million to $561 million, and Ethan's equity, after accounting for debt, would be $180 million to $240 million before taxes. He also said that if the acquisition talks progressed, the capital structure would become public, and Ethan would find out that I was his majority stakeholder. I thought for a moment and decided it was time to end this charade. I told Mr. Thompson to initiate the withdrawal process immediately. I was tired of being invisible while providing the foundation for Ethan's ego. Over the weekend, my lawyers finalized the withdrawal documentation. On Monday morning, Ethan's corporate counsel received the formal notice. Ethan started calling me non-stop, but I ignored his calls. On Tuesday, my phone was filled with missed calls and text messages from Ethan, ranging from confusion to anger to desperation. I only replied once, saying I'd see him on Wednesday at my office. On Wednesday morning, I arrived at my office early. Mr. Thompson came in with a briefcase full of documents. At 9:58 a.m. Ethan's car pulled into the parking lot. He walked in with his lawyer, Mr. Harris. They looked confused when they saw my small consulting office. When I walked into the conference room at exactly 10 a.m., Ethan's reaction was as I expected. After I revealed myself as the silent partner, he was in shock. I explained everything to him. I built my $340 million portfolio over 15 years through strategic investing. I've been an active angel investor in many companies. Translogistics was my biggest investment. I provided $180 million to save your company when it was on the verge of collapse. I took a below-market return and asked for nothing in return except anonymity. Ethan looked sick. 8 years. You've owned half my company for 8 years and never said anything. Why? I replied, because 8 years ago, you were my brother and you needed help. I believed in your vision, even if your execution needed work. I structured the investment to save you without embarrassing you. I then told him he had 3 options: buy out my position at fair market value, agree to accelerate the acquisition talks with proceeds distributed according to our ownership percentages, or find alternative financing. His lawyer, Mr. Harris, spoke up. Given your actual equity position and debt load, buying out your sister's position isn't financially viable. Finding alternative financing is also difficult. So, the acquisition is the best option. Ethan said flatly, the acquisition. I confirmed, yes, and we'll proceed as equal partners. You own 38% and I own 51%. At the valuations you announced, your net position would be around $180 million to $240 million before taxes, and mine would be $433 million to $561 million. Ethan was clearly crushed by the numbers. You're going to make more than twice what I make from the company I built. I said, from the company we built. You provided the vision and operations, and I provided the capital. This is a partnership, even if you didn't know it before. He asked, why now? Why reveal yourself after 8 years? I answered, on Saturday, you told me to stick to my little side projects and that real business was beyond me. You've been saying things like that for 14 years. I'm tired of being dismissed while I've been the one making your success possible. Mr. Thompson then said, Ethan, your sister has been an extraordinary partner. All the major strategic decisions you've made in the last 8 years, like the fleet automation and the logistics software development, came from her recommendations through me. Ethan was shocked. The automation project was your idea? I nodded. Yes. You said at Dad's birthday 3 years ago that automation was a tech fad. 2 months later, Mr. Thompson suggested it, and you thought it was his idea. It saved you $22 million annually. And the software development project was also my idea. You said it was unnecessary overhead, but now it's your competitive advantage. I told him what I wanted, honesty in our business relationship, to proceed with the acquisition as partners, and for him to stop dismissing my business acumen. After some discussion, Ethan finally apologized. I've been an ass to you for 14 years. I'm genuinely sorry. I should have listened to you. We then formalized an agreement. The acquisition talks would continue with both of us involved. The ownership structure would be disclosed during due diligence. Over the next 90 days, we attended meetings together as business partners. The acquiring firm, a Fortune 500 logistics conglomerate, was impressed by our capital management and strategic patience. The final valuation came in at $980 million. My 51% stake was worth $499. $8 million before taxes, and Ethan's 38% was worth $372. $4 million before taxes. After the acquisition was announced, my mother called me. Ava, I saw the announcement. You owned 51% of Translogistics since 2016? How did you get so much money? I explained, I built my portfolio over 15 years through careful investing. I've been more successful financially than I let on. She said, you made more than Ethan. He's having a hard time with it. I replied, his ego needed a wake-up call. He's been dismissing me for years while depending on my capital. My father also called me. He apologized and said he'd been proud of the wrong things. He asked how I'd built my wealth without anyone noticing. I told him I lived modestly and invested wisely. Now, after the acquisition, I've moved into a nicer apartment. I'm still exploring new investment opportunities, and I'm no longer hiding my success. Sometimes, I wonder if I should have handled things differently, but then I remember all the times Ethan dismissed me. I didn't destroy his business, I just revealed the truth. And now, everyone knows the real foundation of his so-called empire.